Of course, I was asked to be here by Commissioner Burrell at the last budget hearing in the pursuit to, my continued pursuit to make this a full-time job, the juvenile court judge a full-time job. I don't, from a procedural standpoint, it has made it through the personnel committee and was actually presented to the commission, or scheduled to be presented to the commission 3 different times, and it was tabled at the last time because it was determined that it had to be an election year or coming up on an election year. Here we are with 2022 just right around the corner. So I do wish to continue my pursuit to make it full-time. I do believe it's justified. The amount of time that's going into it right now continues to be more than just 2 days a week. My court days, I'll have to say, last week was the first week in about almost a year, I would say, that I got out of court at what I would call regular times, which would be before 4 o'clock. I've been staying there 5 to 6, 6:30 on most court days addressing things. With COVID, which it presented lots of different challenges from a school standpoint, it presented those equal challenges to me because virtual learning and the way the children were being educated, some of them didn't have internet, and it was just, I'm still dealing with truancy. In fact, I would like, if I was able to make it full-time, 1 day a week would be dedicated solely to truancy issues. And truancy issues are interesting because it's not always just, they're not going to, young people aren't going to school, it's why they aren't going to school, and addressing those concerns and those issues that are facing the families. So, especially in what I would call the late fall semester and getting into the spring semester, as the truancy issues start to arise, that's where 1 day a week would be dedicated to truancy issues. Something I think that would be beneficial for you all to know as well is I would also have at least 1 day a month that would be addressed to court costs. I learned last week with a young man that came through court that I dealt with him. See, this August I'll start my 11th year. I'll celebrate 10 years of holding this position. His court costs exceed $7,000. He's not paid any money on it. And that's something that should be addressed. And I would have 1 day, at least a month, set aside for cost reviews to help bring monies in that are due the county. And a lot of that money goes to drug testing, and we've had to move some money around from the standpoint of our budget to order new drug screens because we were out and we didn't have the money. And if I can address the cost aspects and start working on getting money coming in, that helps the county as well.
Just Boyd, how many hours outside of your scheduled time on the bench do you dedicate to working for the Office of Juvenile Court outside of what you're scheduled to do?
How many hours per week?
Let's say per week.
I'll say that's going to be hard to answer because it varies. But I would say that on average, I would spend at least an additional day. Of course, there's always the administrative side of things as well. I get awakened at all hours of the night for either DCS removals or signing search warrants for law enforcement. I'm able to do that as well. So I had one morning about 3 weeks ago where I had 2 troopers come by. One called me at 2 o'clock in the morning, the next one called me at 3 o'clock in the morning. So a week, I would say at least another a day, at least.
I'd like to add something to what you said. So working for the school system, we do deal with truancy a lot. We deal with chronic absenteeism as a whole, and truancy is part of that issue. And what I find is, as the year progresses into April and May, your truancy issues actually increase dramatically. The problem is that as you're getting closer to the end of the school year, it's harder to get those kids into my office so that I can review their attendance record and then turn them over to my truancy officer, which then takes them to you. And so what happens is you get a backlog of students, and it's no fault of anybody's, in my opinion, as far as what we're trying to do. But I'll have students that'll have 20 unexcused absences when 5 is what gets you to be legally truant. And I could have upwards of a student with 20 or even 30 unexcused absences waiting to get into court because we just can't get them there. So I'm certainly in favor. I do think you need more time on the bench to hear these cases, just because, and truancy I know is just a part of what we do, but it's the part that I see the most. And getting our kids in school is very important for our community. I believe if they're not going to be there, then they can't learn. So anyway, Judge Boyd, I certainly appreciate you bringing this to the committee this morning, and I'm in support of it, at least factoring it into the formula to see what it's going to cost us in the second draft. So thank you.
I will say that these late truancies that end up in court in, let's say, the latter part of the school year in late April, early May, always end up getting put off to the fall semester. And then even with the summer school this summer, there's the students that were ordered to go to summer school, I treated those as mandatory. So if they missed a day of school, they were brought back up into court. And I've had a few, but I also set those for review through the summer. The last day I believe was June the 17th, which was Thursday. The bigger part of my docket Thursday were truancy reviews on the children that were going to summer school. I know that September the 28th and September the 30th, those 2 days right now are completely dedicated to truancy reviews because of the way that the school calendar worked and the truancy things. I've said, you have to start the school year, the fall school semester, no excused absences, no tardies, etc. And that's right towards the end of the first 9 weeks, so I want to see how their performance is. And then when we have those students come through, a lot of times we'll put services in the home to help address what's going on. If it's behavior issues, if there's other family issues, we can put services in the home that help with counseling and things of that nature. So I want to set reviews to see how they're doing. How are the counselings, are the in-home services working? Is everyone being compliant? Are we making strides to help the family get some of these issues rectified? And it's not just, hey, they show up for 1 day in court. It's, we're going to come back several times, and I want to make sure that the students are attending. I want to make sure that they're putting forth the effort because I want to get them educated.
I have a two-part question. So the first one, obviously a salary increase would change within our budget, but what about these secretaries and clerical personnel? If the position wasn't full-time, would those not increase as well? Would you not need more clerical staff?
I don't believe so. I think the staff and the office, the way that the office is run right now, I don't believe I would need any additional staff.
Okay, and then the second, just for my own information, the process here. So if the personnel committee approves this and the budget committee and all that, it's still not a done deal, right? Then this goes.
It would go to my understanding is it would go to the commission. The commission would vote. It would be a majority vote to take it to the legislature. The legislature would amend the private act, and then it comes back to the commission for a 2/3 vote.
And then of course, once we make it a full-time position, it's then an elected position, correct?
It is an elected position.
That would, then you have to essentially run for next year.
I would have to run, I'm planning on running for it anyway.
Sure.
Any other questions?
How many counties in Tennessee have a full-time juvenile judge?
I would say there are several. A lot of counties handle it a couple of different ways. A lot of counties would have a juvenile magistrate, so the general sessions judge is typically the general sessions and juvenile, but then they have a magistrate that helps them with the juvenile docket. Okay, and then a lot of counties, so they're still paying basically 2 judges. The magistrate doesn't quite make as much as the general sessions judge. Then a lot of counties have basically 2 general sessions judges. For instance, we'll say Hamilton County has 2 general sessions judges, Division 1 and Division 2. Judge Collins strictly handles the criminal docket. Judge Snyder handles the general sessions civil and then the juvenile side of things. Sullivan County does that as well, at least in the Kingsport area. They actually have, Sullivan County has, I believe, 3 general sessions judges, if not 4. You have some that handle the upper end there in Bristol and then in Kingsport, but Kingsport has 2 sessions judges that handle both criminal docket and juvenile docket. They split the duty.
I get a question, then. Basically, I see Mr. Hickson back here, and Matt, I don't mean to put you on the spot, okay? But considering the relation between the school system and the juvenile court system, would you care to give us some thoughts on this? If you feel comfortable.
Sure, yeah. I don't disagree with anything that's been said. I fully support the move. And here's 2 things that may not have been mentioned. Number one, we try to be extremely proactive through tier 1, tier 2, before students make it to before the judge. And the docket that he's talking about is after school interventions proactively up to that and including that point. We have been extremely well supported by his actions and his handouts when it gets to his point, meaning that that's the teeth of our process. And unfortunately, we do require or do need that moment of threat or realism of prosecution when it gets to that tier 3 or beyond point. And Mr. Roach alluded to that as well. And the fact that he's willing to partner with us and really hold them to the fire, so to speak, when it gets to that point, has been extremely beneficial to us. I mean, we're funded based on our attendance, and so from a financial standpoint, without his support and without him working alongside of those parents when it gets to that point, we would have no repercussions in place. And as proactive as we've been, number 2, sorry, we still increase in number from year to year. We're trying, and I think COVID has been an anomaly, but we still saw when we opened fully, we missed 19 total days. So we were one of the school systems in the region that really held firm to trying to keep students in place, such as the judge referred to. We have 40-45% of our students that don't have access to virtual instruction when we had to go virtually. So when we did 19 days across the system out of 180 days, that's pretty good, but we still had problems that we had to track down due to not logging in, not being active when we were virtual, and then when we got back full-time March, 5 days a week, full-time from that to the end of the year, that's prime season for attendance concerns. So his docket didn't slow down, even being an anomaly a year.
I'll say this too, as I'll let it know, we're kind of focusing on the truancy thing. There's a whole lot more that goes into this job than just truancy, but truancy cases take a little bit longer than the average case too, because we're trying to find out why aren't they going to school, what issues are presented to the family, help them come up with a plan to get the wagons circled, if you will, and then see to it that everyone stays on that plan. So, if I have 15 truancy cases in addition to everything else that I have to do, I know that those 15 cases are going to take about an hour and a half to 2 hours before I'm able to address any of these other matters.
I'd like to make a motion, we go ahead and send this on to the second grade.
Mr. Rell made a motion.
Second.
Who? Anna, Anna second. Send Mr. Boyd's request on to the next hearing of the budget meeting.
I assumed in the next, this, correct me, this will be included in the draft, but also we need a resolution before commission, correct?
This wouldn't actually go in the draft, because what it would do is it would coincide with the next election cycle. So it would actually go into the next budget if the processes are followed through and everything is approved.
So,
So just mark out the second draft
Okay.
on our motion.
so then the motion, just to verify then, is for a resolution to be presented to the full commission
Yes.
for approval. Got it. Still second that vote.
You got that, Mr. Burke?
I think so.
Your salary would be the same as Judge Ross
Yes, sir.
if this passed.
Yes, sir.
And it wouldn't go into effect until the after the next election.
It wouldn't go into effect until 2022, that's correct. But petitions, now, I checked with the election office, I think petitions we pick up in February. So, you know, if we wanna make it, and look, I understand, I'm not doing it just, I'm doing it because I'm the one that's holding the office, but I'm also doing it because whoever is elected to that position deserves to dedicate their full time to that job. I think it's, you know, I understand that opens the door for competition, and, you know, competition makes us better, so.
I hear a motion to adjourn.
Yeah, vote.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, vote.
I got interrupted there, didn't I? Mr. Barrett, call roll, please.
Commissioner Speaks, Winder.
Yes.
Commissioner Harrell,
Yes.
Commissioner Rhodes,
Yes.
Commissioner Klotz,
Yes.
Commissioner Thacker,
No.
Commissioner Barrett, yes, Commissioner Jesse.
No.
Mr. Chairman, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, you have 5 votes in favor and you have 2 votes against.
Motion passes.